Hawaii right now and not able to join us. So I'm going to do my best to. Don't really have much from him. There's not a whole lot that's happened. But we'll start out with Doug. See if you're able to do a roll call for us. Wait,
Yeah,
first
can you
of
hear
all,
me, JB?
okay, yeah, okay. I was going to ask Taylor if he started recording, but the answer to that is yes.
Okay. Alabama,
Seth Maddox.
Arkansas,
Brett Leach.
Illinois, Doug McLean, Indiana,
Adam Phelps.
Iowa,
Warren Jones.
Kentucky,
John Bridges.
Louisiana,
Jason Olzak.
Manitoba,
Jillian St. George.
Michigan,
Callie Rush.
Minnesota, Mississippi,
Houston Havens.
Missouri,
Breed Vigut.
Ohio,
Mike Urban.
Ontario,
Fred Brook.
Saskatchewan,
Catherine Conkin.
Tennessee,
Amy Federson.
Wisconsin,
Taylor Finger.
Canadian Wildlife Service,
Frank Baldwin.
U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Bird Banding Lab, USDA APHIS Wildlife Services,
Lee Humber.
USGS. All set, JB.
Sounds great. Does anybody have any introductions? I was just trying to look through and see if there were any folks that are not necessarily see Mike Brazier there from Ducks Unlimited. Who else is on here? Ben from Michigan. Kylie from Kentucky. Joe is here from Fish and Wildlife Service. Who else am I missing?
Go ahead.
Nick. Yep. Nick is here. I think everybody's been here at least once before, right?
Yeah,
sir.
Shannon Badzinski from CWS is also here.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Somehow I'm missing seeing. Anyway, it's great to have everybody. And I guess we will start since Dave's not here. Frank, you got any updates for us? Anything exciting happening? We got a recent letter from Canada in the last couple of days, I think.
Yep, just the notice on our hunting regulation season proposals. So we do those every 2 years and publish them alongside our population status report. So I got a few slides, JB, if I could share my screen.
Please go ahead.
Are you seeing it in presenter mode there?
Yes, sir. It looks like it to me.
Okay, so perfect. So yeah, happy to take any questions if folks have sort of throughout the presentation. I just got about 12 slides or so, but I wanted to go over some of the season proposals since the comment period will end before our winter flyway meeting occurs. So obviously I'll be at the winter flyway meeting also and happy to discuss any of these down there, but for the sake of the comment period, just wanted to make sure that folks are aware of what's being proposed. So first of all, I've had this slide in before around the budget reductions that we're going to be experiencing in environment and climate change over the next few years, but I wanted to reiterate that because we're having a meeting tomorrow where we're going to learn how large the downsizing is going to be and how it's going to affect CWS. So pretty significant number of public service staff are going to be downsized in the next 3 years. So the government's talking about 10,000 that have already been let go, and then about another 30,000. So this is a large number. Obviously, has the potential to impact us depending on how it's distributed and how migratory birds get hit. So I'll have more information on that at our winter meeting. But just wanted to share that now. A bit of a stressful time for a lot of people that work in CWS. So we recently published the status report that we do every 2 years and regulatory proposals. So we have a biennial process in Canada, and we have a public comment period. They were released last Saturday on January 17th, and that public comment period will extend for about 1 month, closing on February 15th. So I can send this out additionally, but I think folks mostly received the notice from Taylor. So you have the email address if you wish to comment, if your state or the Flyway wishes to comment. And then there's a link in that email also to where you can find both the status report and the regulatory report. So there's a number of different proposals in place for dates and zones in parts of the Flyway in Ontario and Manitoba. And then there's some other proposals that I'll make you aware of also in Saskatchewan and Alberta. And there's also 2 notices of consideration, one for mourning doves and one for swans in Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba. And those are part of a process where we seek public feedback, but they're not an actual season proposal. So if the provinces and CWS choose to go ahead with a season proposal, the formal proposal would occur in 2027 and then be implemented in the 2028 hunting season. So just to get down to the specific proposals here, some of these I've spoken about in the summer meeting, but Ontario is going through with the proposal for implementation of a sandhill crane season. So again, that would be a fall 2026 implementation. It's proposed to be a 14-day season, starting September 1st in the Hudson Bay, James Bay district and September 11th in the northern and central districts of Ontario. And it's going to be a 1 bird per day bag limit and 1 in possession limit, limited to farmland only and for Canadian hunters only. So I know the Webless Committee is quite familiar with this proposal. Chris Sharp's been over it a few times. Very small predicted harvest, even with no tag and just a 1 bird season. So that's in the report. Ontario region is also proposing a 7-day Canada goose hunting season starting on the 4th Saturday of February. So it's sort of a late winter season in a select number of Southern Ontario WMUs. And to make room for that season, they had to close their regular goose season on December 25th. And at the same time, the current regulations have a lot of references to Sunday closures in different municipalities that prohibit hunting on Sundays. The references to all those are also going to be removed, which is similar to how other parts of Canada has dealt with Sunday hunting closures. And then lastly, there's some restrictions proposed to the conservation seasons for snow and Ross's geese in a select number of WMUs in Ontario. So the season will now run April 1st to 30th. The change won't take effect until 2027 because these regulations won't be processed in time for the spring season in 2026. Proposal is to reduce the bag limit from 20 down to 12. Again, it'll be farmland only. And the purpose behind this reduction is to respond to declining greater snow goose population as indexed by their spring aerial survey, which is a photographic survey, and recent years of very low population or very low productivity. So that population has dipped close to their low threshold. And just before I move on, Shannon, was there anything that I missed for Ontario?
It's the major stuff there. I think you got it covered.
All right. Sounds good. So we'll move on to Manitoba. We have a variety of date and zone amendments in Manitoba, most of which were intended to simplify and reduce the length of our table. And I'm just going to flip to those. So we have one potential issue in our non-resident dates that we've, I guess, been alerted to since these were proposed. So I think Jillian and I maybe, and some other folks in Wildlife Ranch had a bit of a miscue on the season dates that we're proposing, which was an earlier opening date to both duck and dark goose seasons for foreign resident hunters. Typically, the season has been a delayed start, so it opens on September 24th. Recently, the province imposed a term license as well as a quota of non-resident freelance hunters. And I think this communication stems from a similar proposal that we had to repeal our dark goose hunting restriction in Manitoba. So non-residents can't hunt dark geese until after Thanksgiving in the afternoon. But when we had discussions with stakeholders, they were at the time supportive of removing that because there's a limited quota and a limited number of term licenses. And our thought was, at least on CWS side, was that the September 1 date was also supported for the same reasons. Since we've published the proposal in the last few days, we've been alerted to the fact that our major stakeholders do not support this change. So we have it in the table of proposed date changes, but we're having a meeting in the next week or so to go through this with the province and with our stakeholders. So while it's part of the season reg change package here, I just wanted to draw your attention to the fact that we're already experiencing a lot of negative comments around that change. Recently, also, some of those stakeholders in the past supported the removal of the afternoon dark goose restriction. We're also hearing a lot of negative comments about that one. So just wanted to remind folks, these are proposals. They don't necessarily go through to all become law, but any that do go through will be published in our hunting summaries in the fall. So Jillian and I will have more information to share on that probably at the winter meeting. And as I said, we have notices consideration published for both Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta to consider a hunting season for mourning doves. So again, that would be earliest implementation of 2028. And similarly, a notice of consideration for a tundra swan hunting season in those places with the same timelines of implementation. So in the proposals report, you'll find a summary of what's being considered, how the population will be monitored, and other information about potential season dates, bag limits, and in the case of swans, like a tag allocation. In the document, there's also a portion that deals with baiting regulation. And so the proposal is to amend the regulations to allow baiting up to 14 days before the start of the duck hunting season. In the current regulations, it's stipulated as 14 days before any migratory bird hunting season. But as seasons for things like doves have been added and early seasons for temperate nesting Canada geese have been added, the regulation has sort of become inconsistent with the policy in Canada, which was historically to allow baiting up to 14 days prior to the season for ducks. And it's a really uncommon practice in Prairie Canada, so we haven't really been involved in the drafting of the proposal, but it's more common in Ontario and Eastern Canada is our understanding. And then similarly in the prairie provinces, our duck seasons all start on September 1st anyhow, so there's no delayed date between duck and goose seasons in the prairies. And again, I'll go to Shannon in case I missed anything of importance around the baiting aspect.
I think you got her for the most part.
Other changes, CWS is going to be going to a fully electronic issuance of the migratory game bird hunting permit in the future. So the earliest possible implementation will be 2027. So right now we have a variety of ways for people to obtain their permit. They can get it physically at a variety of vendors, at Canada Post. But in the interests of efficiency, we're going to be moving to a 100% e-permit system and also phasing out the paper distribution of hunting summaries to the same vendors. So, and then lastly, just wanted to have a slide on high path avian influenza. We had some unprecedented mortality in Canada geese in December, attracted a lot of media interest between us and the province. We collected off a few ponds in a couple different areas over 600 carcasses. So these were birds that were mostly frozen in the ice around rural retention pond or residential retention ponds, and then we also had some areas in more rural settings where birds were dying around sort of the last remaining open water. So we hadn't experienced really any significant mortality in the fall time since the incursion of the latest high path strain, but this was a particularly bad year in Manitoba in late November, early December. And just based on the birds that we picked up, it was a combination of temperate nesting Canada geese, subarctic nesting Canada geese, and then also some cacklers in the mix too. So it was really confined to Canada geese, no major reported mortality of snow geese or any duck species. So I just wanted to flag that. And that's all I have, but happy to take any questions.
Questions for Frank? Warren.
Hey, Frank, thanks for that update. Was wondering, how did those discussions about picking up the bird carcasses come about, and what's CWS and the province's policies about removing carcasses or responding to high path AI outbreaks?
Yeah, we do have an established policy, but most of these documents were written shortly after the incursion, where we were preparing for large scale mortality. And a lot has changed since then, like 4 years has passed. So the policy says that it's the responsibility of the landowner or land manager. And so in cases where that happens on federal lands, it becomes our responsibility. The reality is, though, that was a big point of confusion this year because we hadn't really dealt with this. And in this particular case, the picture here is from a town called Niverville, just south of Winnipeg. And the town and the RM refused to have their staff involved in the cleanup because of safety concerns. And rather than debate about who is going to deal with it between us and the province and a handful of staff, we dealt with it over a number of days. The big consideration in the other areas, we didn't pick up anywhere, obviously, where it wasn't safe to do so in terms of ice thickness. So we did have to wait until the ice was sufficiently thick to go and retrieve these birds, and then it involved a lot of chipping out of carcasses. It was not very glorifying work, but it is something that we're going to be meeting with the province and their wildlife disease folks with over the next few months to firm up the policy that we have in place and make sure that we have support for what was written 4 years ago. But yeah, it's a good question. It caused a lot of internal debate, that's for sure.
We have that same debate, and this year we had a pretty nasty outbreak in Des Moines, and a mayor of a Des Moines metro called our director to request help. And so what's the rationale on picking up the carcasses, Frank? Is it to reduce the exposure threat to other birds or to people and their pets, or just from a superficial cosmetic perspective? Like, what's the why behind picking up the carcasses?
In the urban areas, it's definitely optics and potential exposure of, like you said, pets, children, and birds like scavengers. So that time of year, we have a lot of bald eagles that are going through. And in this case, there's all the kids in this area use this pond as a skating rink. So there was already skating rinks being, built amongst all of these dead geese. And people had geese that had died in their backyard, in play structures, on their decks. People were picking up geese and in some cases, like taking them in their vehicles to different wildlife rehabilitation centers. All around, it was just, the potential for nothing positive to come out of it. So we've had outbreaks in rural areas in the past where there's been minimal cleanup because we consider it natural disease outbreaks. And just like we don't respond to botulism, we typically won't respond to those. But the other thing in this case was the media got very involved in this. This was a big story for them. There was people that were sending clips to the media. They were out there when we were cleaning up. So to best manage that situation and gripe about who's going to do it, we just got it done in a matter of days. And I think it turned out as well as it could.
Yeah. interesting. Thanks, Frank.
Any other questions for Frank? All right. Hearing none, thank you very much, Frank. We will move on to the next item, and the next item is basically an update on the AHM task force. Adam, would you want to just kind of give everybody a rundown of what's happened? I think it's kind of the task force and the Harvest Management Working Group and everything kind of roll into one. Just a kind of quick update on what's happened with the last task force meeting.
Sure. The task force met 2 weeks ago, I think. At that meeting, they came up with a list of objectives, which was odd because we had developed a list of objectives at the Harvest Management Working Group meeting in December. Each of the flyways sat down with their task force members and talked through the list of objectives, and then we sort of performatively derived this list of objectives from whole cloth in the meeting. It was really sort of strange, but anyway, we now have a draft list of objectives that are fundamental objectives with means objectives associated with each one. Upon seeing that draft list that came out of that meeting, several of us had concerns about what it looked like, and so it sounds like we're going to discuss that with the Harvest Management Working Group on our what is now a bi-weekly call next Thursday before that goes to the task force members for discussion. Going into the February meeting of the task force, we should have a list of draft objectives with draft fundamental objectives with associated means objectives that they can sort of finalize at that meeting, and then we'll begin talking about management options at that meeting. I believe it may be the March one that we start talking about that, though. I think we're starting the management options in February. I see that the agenda has the rule setting piece on there, which was the big thing that came out of the Harvest Management Working Group meeting. So I'll leave that for now. And I guess take any questions on the task force, if you have any.
Just to say, it feels like now at least there's some progress, right, Adam? That we're, even if it's still slow, at least there's some, rather than debating, I don't know, the rules, we're actually making some forward momentum. There's actually some forward momentum now.
There is some forward momentum. It is frustrating to me anyway, talking through an objective setting process with, administrators who probably have never been through a process like this in their lives. And so we have very, very fundamental basic discussions with these folks. Why hunter satisfaction may not be a great metric for setting duck regulations, things like that. It's frustrating. A lot of it seems like you're talking with absolute beginners, but of course we are talking with absolute beginners. Some of these folks have never probably even thought about waterfowl in a meaningful way. So that definitely comes through in some of these conversations. But yes, having a list of objectives and hopefully being able to finalize that next month, next month, I guess, is a big plus. Oren's got his hand up.
Has our new director level representative been attending and engaged in the conversation?
She has been. She's been at. She was at the January meeting. She joined at the very last minute at the Harvest Management Working Group meeting when we met together. When I met with her and Luke and Barb to talk through what the objectives were going to look like, she was fairly engaged. Didn't say much during the task force meeting, but neither did Luke, which anyone who knows Luke will be surprised by that. So yeah, it was a little bit quiet on our end. I was hoping for a little bit more input, especially on these objectives. But it is what it is. The list that came out wound up pretty okay, and I think we'll be able to clean it up and get something useful out of it.
Thanks, Adam.
And Adam, just to also kind of, as the Harvest Management Working Group continues to be involved in this, we'll meet again in March, I guess, the week before the North American, to work on some more details of this. So first time in my knowledge that it's met more than once in a year.
Yep, we've got a in-person meeting, probably looking like Phoenix. Yeah, that week. I guess that is the week before the North American, isn't it? To try to work through probably management actions at that point. I'm not sure exactly what's going to be. It depends on how far we get with the next task force meeting, right? But I guess we'll have two before then. So we could potentially be done with objectives completely and be working on management options. So management options would be things like splash limits, season length, all that kind of stuff that you think about when you think about duck regulations. That's the next piece.
Sounds good, Adam. Thank you very much. Any other questions for Adam?
Will we need a recommendation to cover travel to that meeting, or will it fall under the standard travel recommendation?
Adam asked me that exact same question late last week, and I said I would talk with Joe about it when I saw Joe, and I haven't been able to talk with Joe about it yet. So I have that on my list of things to do. I'm going to try and grab him today before he leaves, and I'll have an answer. I'll have an answer for us. I'll let everybody know.
Sounds good.
All right. Sounds good. And don't go far, Adam, because I guess this next topic on the agenda was the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service decision on the rule setting process. I guess Adam and I were at the Harvest Management Working Group, along with all the other state reps, kind of had to pick our jaws up off the floor as we were told that the normal process for which we set regulations had been basically abandoned. That the service has decided that it will either be the new process or nothing. And so I just wanted to kind of go over that for those of y'all that basically, have created a new process, which we have talked about, I guess, for a couple of years now, but basically a memorandum process where any changes are noted by memorandum versus having to go through and recreate the regs each year. That new process is in DOI. It was in DOI in December. It's still, I checked today, it is still in DOI. At some point, if they get it out of DOI, it would then go to, I guess, OMB for, no, it's surnaming in DOI. Then it could go to OMB for review. They have 90 days for that review. Once that's complete, the process could be published as a proposed rule. There would be a minimum of a 60-day comment period on that, maybe 90 days. Then the service would have 30 days to respond to that and publish a final rule. So there's a lot of 30 and 90-day periods, 60-day periods in there between now and September 1st. So I guess it's just something that we wanted to put on everybody's radar to pay attention to because it's a pretty big deal. I know that at the um when the I guess who was it? I guess anyway, we recently kind of asked the service to let us know sooner rather than later that this was going to or not going to happen. The service thinks that if this isn't going to happen, they could publish an emergency rule that would allow them to revert to last year's rules. And so the details on that are still a little unclear. Do last year's rules include last year's dates? Which those of you like our state starts duck season on Thanksgiving Day. Would it start on Thanksgiving Day? Would it start on November 27th or whatever the heck it was this year? So those are questions that still nobody has been able to answer. So we shall see. But it's I guess it was the SRC is where it came up, where I think Joe did a really nice job of kind of and Joe and Todd did a really nice job of kind of asking for clarity on this. And I think during the SRC, Jerome felt like it was going to happen faster rather than slower. And we're a month after that and nothing has happened. So we shall see. What have I left off for Adam?
I mean, to me, the big thing is if it came out today, you'd be looking at sometime in July for the final rule to get in place. And obviously, it's not coming out today. I think at this point, it's going to be an absolute mess this fall, and I don't know how that's going to be resolved. When Todd Sanders told us that he was told explicitly to not pursue the regular season setting process this year, to let this be the only way, I mean, you could hear everyone in the room's blood pressure shoot up. It felt very much like we were being painted into a corner by Jerome. After hearing him talk at the SRC, his position that he espoused then was that he wanted to make sure that nobody at the service had a way out, that they had to get this thing through. I think that was incredibly optimistic, if that was really his thinking. Because the other thing that I think most of us in the room immediately thought of at the Harvest Management Working Group was, if this rule came out with a 3-year season setting period, the flyways would either have to accept it or not, or face not having a season. And so kind of forcing our hand. I obviously don't know what the real motivation was here, but it seems incredibly short-sighted, and I think we're going to have a real mess this fall. I don't know how this is going to resolve. I don't know what would happen if they find out. I mean, he said the service could potentially, or thinks that they could publish an emergency rule to revert to last year's regs, but that's by no means a surety. So if the service comes to us this late summer and says we can't open the season, what does that look like? I mean, I can tell you what some of the conversations were, but I'm very interested in what that's going to look like. Go ahead, Taylor.
Yeah, I guess from my perspective, I've been kind of floating these discussions, what has been happening to my council member, and, even on some, because we're setting our rules and regs for the next 5 years, and had some discussions with our internal conservation partners. And there has been the ask of, do we send letters? Again, not like Wisconsin Wildlife Federation, Wisconsin Waterfowl Association, or us as a state agency, the relationship with regard to the flyways and the flyways and the Fish and Wildlife Service, or this entire process of not potentially having hunting seasons. Is their value? Are we comfortable with us, using some of the same language that we have utilized as a flyway to have other folks make noise as well? Or is this something that we wait to hear more on?
Those are great questions. I don't know how to. I don't. This is. I mean, for me, this is just uncharted territory, and a part of me. Yes, I've had some of the same discussions you have, Taylor. Part of me, everybody looks at me like, okay, Chicken Little, skies falling, kind of thing. You know, it's. I guess part of me wants to believe they'll find a way to fix this, but if they don't, they've got some real trouble. I have to think about my friend Doug and his nice, fun process that he's done with zones in the last years or so, and what his life would be like if he had to tell all his hunters in August, oh yeah, we're going back to what we had last year. Uh, you know, for me, it's not that big a deal unless the dates tie in. I don't know, but like Adam said, they don't know that they can publish the emergency rule. They think they can and revert to last year's. So, but I don't think at this point there's any chance of saying, hey, we're going to take up the normal process and make it work. I think we're either stuck with hoping that the new thing goes through or, this emergency action. And I don't know. And one thing I'll just say, this question came up also, I think Oren asked, but we have not formally shared this with council. Joe and Todd were, I guess, briefed at length by me and Adam before the SRC meeting, so they are very aware of it. And so I've sent y'all this information with kind of the hope that y'all would also share with your council members, but we haven't made a formal share of this with council. And I don't know if that's appropriate to what the group thinks we should do, or if we just continue to kind of leave it with you guys informing your own council members.
I guess my thought here is that if we wait until council sees this and, there's the North American, are we past the point of no return in terms of the time for this? I mean, Adam said July. You wait until March, where even if can anything be done by that point in time to make this work?
I mean, I'm not sure anything can be done now.
Yeah.
I don't honestly know what that would even be.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to envision a scenario in which all of us have printed out hunting regulations that are all ready to roll, and we hit September 1 and we don't have a legal hunting season. What that looks like.
I know the consultants, Adam and Jamie, were very kind of direct with Jerome, but you need to have an answer for us this spring versus waiting till July or August to tell us that this isn't going to happen, if I remember that right.
Yeah, they pushed them a bit in the SRC meeting as much as they could. Remember that? I don't think there's much that we can do other than talk about it internally and be prepared internally and communicate this with our council members. But at this point, it's out of our hands. And I think all we can really do is wait at least until our in-person meeting, but likely until council. And if it's not clear by council's meeting in the last week of March, I think council needs to take a pretty firm action on that. And it'll probably be up to our group to adjust that and point them in the right direction.
I think if we get to our meeting and it's not out of the surnaming process and DOI, there's zero chance that this is going to happen. And so what are we going to do? And saw Houston's hand up. Houston?
Maybe this is just a naive question, but what's the unknown with having an emergency rule done and ready to go in the queue just in case it's needed? That may be a question for somebody who's not on the call, but
Houston, my guess would be that, again, Jerome said, I was tired of giving people an out. They want this new process. This is going to be their only option. This is what we're going to do. And so by having the emergency rule in hand, they give the people an out again. So I don't know. That would be my guess is Jerome would oppose it from that standpoint. But who knows at this point? Again, Jason.
Yeah, so we might need to step back a little bit here, but and I'll admit too, I missed that December SRC meeting, most of it. What I was able to get was just towards the end there, and at that time, Jerome was speaking in terms of, the issues that the flyway had kind of been smoothed over, and we're in a more cooperative place. But going back to that flyway perspectives letter from the Harvest Management Working Group, which was as firmly a worded letter as I've ever seen, I'm at a loss as to what transpired between there, or I'm just missing something onto where Jerome felt comfortable to just say, well, here's the plan now, guys, and we're going forward with this.
I mean, best I can tell, this was a unilateral decision that was made before the Harvest Management Working Group ever met, because they would have started this process last spring for this season. Now, a question might be asked why we didn't know about it until December, why we didn't know that they hadn't started that process, why we didn't know that the service was putting all their eggs in this very questionable basket, because that process would have started last spring for this coming season. And we didn't find out about it until December that they didn't do it. Now, I don't know the answer to that question. And, regarding Jerome and his way of speaking, I mean, he's constantly talking about what a cooperative person he is and how great our synergy is and all that stuff, and it's just nonsense. So I don't know that I'd put a whole lot of stock into what he was saying at the end of that meeting. But I mean, if you look at the email that JB sent out on the 18th of December, he outlines very clearly what this process looks like and how short of a time period that was, even in December. I mean, at this point, you can imagine which states are saying things like, there's no way the feds are going to stop us from having a season. Like, there's going to be some very, very interesting legal challenges happening this fall if the seasons don't open, I think.
I can see my friends in Louisiana telling their hunters, sorry, we're reverting to last year's rules, no black-bellied whistling ducks, and their political friends. But I don't know. That's what.
Just outside of ducks, think about what September 1st is going to be like. Everybody in the South is going to be sitting on a dove field. Legal, maybe not. This is beyond ducks and beyond duck hunters. Like, you're effing with a lot of people. This is going to be bad, guys. This is going to be really bad.
Well, we put the black belly season in our NOI in January. It's out there.
I guess we'll see how many federal wardens there are out there in the South on September 1st.
Yeah, the state of Wisconsin has 3. So again, in the grand scheme of things, I don't envision our state wardens are like, well, it's a state law. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of people hunting, very few citations written.
Well, I still, I believe something will get in place to allow the hunting to be legal. My concerns are, one, we're going to shove this bad 3-year stuff down our throat because there's no other option. We don't have time to reconsider anything, or that we're going to go to the reverted thing, which makes, again, Jason's or Doug's or other folks' lives incredibly hard.
Well, we just don't know. This is completely out of our hands, and we just don't know a lot of these important details. And there's no one on here who can answer them, and answers have been pretty few and far between so far. So I don't know that there's a lot more we can do.
The last thing I would just ask you guys, are you okay with us continuing? I mean, is this something that I need to send Todd as chair a letter to say, hey, you guys need to share this with your folks? I mean, we've had a private discussion with Todd and with Joe, and you guys have shared with your council members, but is it good enough what we've done to this point, or do we need to do more?
JB, I think you could ask Todd and Joe that when you share with them the plans for the agenda for the upcoming in-person meeting, and just identify this as a major topic and a major uncertainty, and that we want to engage with council and get their guidance.
Mike's got his hand up.
Yeah, Mike.
I don't want to take away from your discussion. I mean, you want me to ask my question? You all want to continue? This is related, but
ask your question, Mike.
Okay, so it's been a little bit lost on me where or even what the 3-year process, this 3-year element even is. I mean, I've seen a few emails, but that's never been really clear to me what it is. And did that just come out of the blue? Because I was aware of the new process that was being proposed to expedite the annual setting of the regulations just through a memo, right?
Correct.
And they just slapped this 3-year setting regulations for 3 years at a time.
The details of it still aren't really clear to anybody, Mike. Okay. But the gist of it is that we will still evaluate things every year. And so if duck populations fall, we could restrict the season every single year. But we will not consider liberalizations or Taylor's talking about potentially having a sandhill crane season. We will, or Jason, if he weren't in this a year ahead, black-bellied whistling duck, we would only consider new things every 3rd year. So somewhat like we do with the zones and splits, you can only make changes every 5 years. This would be, you could really only change seasons every 3rd year unless there's an emergency that requires a restriction. So that's what we've gotten from our friends that are in the Fish and Wildlife Service. It's as best we can tell is mostly a Jerome idea that he has sold to higher level folks, and we have, but we've met, and we sent a letter in response to this, and we got a nice response from Nesvik back, said he wanted to be a good partner, and then a couple weeks later we heard from Jerome it's staying in there but y'all have a chance to comment. So we'll see. Unfortunately, none of us have seen, and I don't really even know that if the Todd Sanders basically is the person who wrote this new memorandum process. And he was basically understanding was he was excluded from the revisions that added the 3-year stuff. So he has been removed and nobody really knows what it says.
That's absurd. That's what I thought. I mean, yeah, that's what I thought I had heard, but yeah. I know our people are aware of it. I know they have had conversations at very high levels. I don't have any recent updates on any kind of traction they have gained, other than I can tell you they were furious whenever they first heard about it. But as you all know, there are many, many pressing issues that we are fighting with the Fish and Wildlife Service, discussing with the Fish and Wildlife Service. So, okay, I'll check with some of our folks and just see if they've had any recent discussions about this. So thanks for entertaining the question.
Of course, anytime. So not any other questions. Is everybody comfortable with the path that Orrin kind of highlighted? What I'm going to do in the next week or so is send Todd and some of the, I guess Todd is chair. Here's our agenda. Here's the things, the topics that we're intending to discuss. Are there anything that you specifically would like us to look at? And then just kind of highlight are you okay with how we're moving forward on this issue? Everybody's okay? All right. Well, let's see. Let me go back to my shoot. Here we go. Back to the agenda. Okay. Houston, what can you tell us about two-tier?
So, as most of you know, we've had a working group that has been moving things forward. And I say moving things forward, Nate has certainly been the impetus for continuing to move forward with the working group to put together a proposal for a phase 2 of the Tier 2 waterfowl hunting or duck hunting license experiment. And that proposal was finalized yesterday on a call that we had with the working group. And John had sent it out, at least to the tech reps, to take a look at what is in that proposal. No action today. Really just kind of wanted to open-ended. If we want to walk through some of the points in the proposal, we can do that. It'll certainly be a topic of discussion in the Human Dimensions Committee in our in-person meeting in February. And it will have with it a recommendation to put this phase 2 into motion. But if anybody hasn't had a chance to look at it, I'll be glad to pull it up and share. John, you got any preference there? You want to do that? Okay.
Please.
All right. I'm going to kind of skip through a little bit of the background information here and kind of pick up with and be glad to go backwards if needed for any questions, but kind of pick up where shifting from phase 1 to phase 2 comes into play here. And so the majority of the discussions have been around just kind of tightening up some evaluation criteria from phase 1 to phase 2. And essentially what phase 2's goal is overall is to increase our sample size. So obviously we had just Nebraska and South Dakota completed phase 1. We got the final report from that. I'd be glad to share that with anybody who doesn't have it or doesn't have it handy to review that in detail. But in order to go to full implementation for everyone, there needed to be a second phase to kind of increase sample size and distribution of this experiment to be sure that it's feasible to be able to implement on a wide scale or wider scale. So Participation, what I guess the group is kind of looking for is a minimum of 2 to 3 states per flyway for this next phase. And then within that, priority would be given to states with higher harvest levels and potentially high harvest of species with bag limits below 3 per day. Questions came up about, is this open to everybody, as it has been with phase 1, and of course, states would be it would be up to states that are participating to have the flexibility to restrict non-resident participation if they decided to do that. A lot of the discussion has been around monitoring, which is not too different from phase 1. Going to be a diary sent to everyone participating. There's an appendix in this proposal that covers the digital wing collection process, how that information would be collected. But it's certainly, if you're a state that's considering potentially volunteering to participate in phase 2, you want to take a look at that and see, we can talk more at the in-person meeting about, what all would be involved in the monitoring portion for a participating state. All right, let's go down. Implementation would be, and again, this is just implementation of phase 2, not the full scale operational, but implementation across participating states would begin in the 27 and 28 hunting season. Let's see. It would not be an option in a flyway if a restrictive general duck season is in effect. A lot of talk about special limits. Harlequins would remain closed in Atlantic flyway. Mottled duck bag limits will require additional consideration should a state with mottled ducks be interested in participating in phase 2. So that kind of captures, I guess, some of the high harvest states like Louisiana and Texas that potentially, have no interest here. There was some discussion about, okay, if we, after phase 2, if this is, operational, even though states would not all be required to offer it, we all know that there, if something is on the table, there are ways to have something, I guess, required, or have your state agency require it, just because it's known that it's out there. But the mottled duck issue would require additional consideration, and that's the only wording that we have here before a state would be that has mottled ducks would be a part of this next phase or the operational stage. Okay, when an individual species strategy calls for a closed season, that species would be closed for 2-tier hunters. So those questions came up about, will we have hunters that were shooting 3 birds of a species where we're, had a closed season through our regular process. Mergansers would be included in the 3-bird bag, and an MOU would cover participation. And again, this is talking about phase 2. The question came up about if a state, went in for a year or 2 of this 4-year proposed experiment, and then decided they did not want to continue participation, what would that look like? Would the whole thing fall apart, if that were to happen? And so the flyway reps that were on the call yesterday just said that those kind of details would need to be covered in an MOU to kind of outline. Of course, you couldn't force a state to continue for 4 years, but just kind of trying to tighten up what those details would look like if that were to happen. So proposal includes a 4-year period with a final year to allow for completion of evaluation, similar to what we've done with other experimental other experiments seasons. Let's see what else here. The details of how it will be evaluated. Less than or equal to 10% above historic means for harvest by population or flyway. Focal species would be, of course, species that have bag limits below a 3-bird bag, or they can, like pintails, depending on how things fall out from year to year. Some things here about satisfaction surveys that are all pretty well in line with how phase 1 was completed. Just trying to pick out things that might be a little different or additional details from phase 1. All right, I'm going to move down to the pathway here, just kind of the timeline. Of course, in February and March, at our in-person meetings, we will be reviewing and considering this proposal and then the associated recommendation with that in our regs committee. Tentatively identify states to participate so they can do their own rulemaking process and cover their whole state processes for. This has kind of been a, try not to get the cart before the horse, situation. We tried to nail down is what we're looking for, and I'll give you an example. So in the Atlantic Flyway, there seems to be a lot of interest among their states, and so they don't really know how they'll handle that. I guess maybe just by giving priority if they have a lot of states that are wanting to jump on to phase 2, whereas the Mississippi Flyway and the Pacific Flyway are on kind of the other end of the spectrum as far as desire for multiple states to participate. But March of 2026, Council would consider, of course, if we were to carry a recommendation forward from the tech section and then the SRC with consideration and possible adoption. And then fall of 2026, states would need to basically opt in at that point for participating in this phase 2. And then, of course, again, implementation starting in 27 and 28. So that's kind of a brief overview of the process that's outlined right now. I'll stop. Well, I guess I can leave this up. I see Taylor has his hand up. Go ahead.
So I see in there it says electronic wing identification. I know Nate said that it could happen. Who's developing that? Who's gonna put that app together to make that something that everyone can use? And
Yep, that is certainly
Oh,
a question that's still out there. There's a little bit of the details here in this appendix. Josh Stiller apparently had used that, or some states maybe in the Atlantic Flyway have used this in the past. And so I guess there was some potential that could continue to be built out and offered more widely to use what had been used on a more limited basis in the past.
Great.
Oren?
Hey, Houston, thanks for going through this. I hadn't looked at it yet. One thing that caught my eye was that 10% threshold above historic mean. Can you talk about that a little more and what the rationale is there?
Not really the rationale, I suppose. Let's see here. Back down.
It's page 2, second half of page 2. Yep,
Gotcha.
you're
Okay.
almost
Yeah,
there.
harvest
There it
monitoring.
is.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was basically kind of a straw dog that was put out there, 10% change. There was a lot of question about what do we have the ability to detect with harvest changes. And nobody, honestly, nobody in the working group felt good about our ability to detect a change like this. So it's kind of a default, a flat, 10% change in mean. And certainly a good question. If there's other recommendations on, the number that needs to go there, but the question will always remain, what is our ability to detect any of those changes? Are they real changes? And there were some examples pulled up in the estimates, harvest estimates in the past, and how they fluctuated, and the error associated with those, or confidence associated with those. So certainly a valid question. Don't have a good answer.
And how would it link tier 2 to the 10% change? That's because if we're changing the pintail bag limit from 1 to 3 in the same time period, couldn't that result in a 10% increase in harvest and pintails? I'm just trying to think through this.
Yeah, certainly it definitely gets messy if you've got, bag limit changes, which we, certainly should expect. Yeah, I don't have a good answer there. I'll certainly write that down and let Nate know, and we can talk about that more in the in-person meeting.
Thank you.
Adam?
I'm having a little bit of a difficult time telling. It looks like most of the onus for the evaluation is falling on the states that are participating. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you tell me, is anything in here dinging the division at all, the service at all, in terms of having to monitor any of this stuff? The reason I'm asking is because this is on our agenda every year at the Harvest Management Working Group, and we're stretched a little thin at the moment, and I'm just kind of trying to see what hits come to that group or to the service from this process.
Yeah, good question. So my understanding is that this would largely, if not at all, be on the states, because that did come up, that any additional monitoring, evaluation on the Fed side was going to be difficult. I think, well, I know that there is, well, I won't say I know. I think there is potential for some of the evaluation to go through. Is it Nebraska Lincoln? Mark Vatiska is now. For them to handle with the states that are participating to fund a project to handle a lot of the legwork here. That's not out yet, I don't believe. I guess it would depend on how many states are involved, and how, funding per state would come into play there. But I think that was the thinking for that being put together, that some of that would be handled through that potential project.
Houston, I would say, though, as Orrin pointed out, the onus would be on the feds to try to help us determine what that 10% is, getting the wing envelopes out, doing the HIP analysis, all that type of stuff. And again,
Sure.
Even in a normal year, that can't be a guarantee. And so
Yeah.
I guess that would be the one part, that if it's determining whether or not you continue with it, it's still a pretty important aspect on the Fed's end to meet that, responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and is that 10%, is that at a state level, or is that somehow expanded to a flyway level? I mean, it says population/flyway, so yeah.
Yeah.
Help me remember, just because I don't. What states in the Mississippi Flyway were interested?
Minnesota for sure. And was Wisconsin the other one that was potential? No.
Sweet baby Jesus, no.
Right, forgive me. I would have to look back and see. We did not have two for sure.
We were on the fence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come on, it's got to be Louisiana.
Yeah,
Yeah, Michigan is interested.
And so again, based on this, Houston, the states that were interested would have to tell us for the September meeting.
Yes. And the sooner the better, really. And so another, potential cart before the horse thing is, depending on what states are interested, do we still have enough at the end of phase 2 to be confident that we know what this would look like going operational and offered to all states? And we just don't know. I can tell you, in the Pacific Flyway, is at least the reps that have been on this working group, it seems like Arizona is maybe the only one that says for sure we're interested. And nothing against Arizona, but that's not going to get us what we need from the Pacific Flyway as far as harvest and participation. So maybe one additional on the fence from the Central. Of course, you've got Nebraska and South Dakota there that are interested in continuing.
Texas not jumping on board.
Don't believe they're going to volunteer.
All right. Well, that's good information, Houston. More information to come next month, and a recommendation for this moving forward. All right. Anything else for Houston? That we will move to Reed. Where is Reed for the wood duck? Will give us some information on wood duck banding goals.
I've got that one covered.
Oh,
Reed's
okay.
got the banding committee.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Brett. Yeah, that's right. Wrong person. Sorry.
All good. But yeah, so based on our last flyway meeting, when we had ended up discussing wood duck banding goals, we basically came to the conclusion that, particularly in the south, that the goals just weren't attainable. So basically today we just wanted to get feedback from you all on some updated banding goals that Pam had been working on. Just that way we can prep for the February meeting a little bit better. So Pam, if you want to share your screen.
I will do that.
Hi, Pam. I missed that you were you here at the beginning? I missed that you snuck in. So
I stuck in a little bit late,
okay.
Mostly because I was kind of still like putting a few things into this presentation here. Let's see here. So let's
Sorry
go.
to distract you. Good to see you as always.
No, it's totally okay. I thought I had this already. I'm not sure why it's not coming up on my what the heck?
Pam, I'm guessing you didn't have your presentation done because it was still going through DOI and OMB review, huh?
I'm not a very good liar, so I won't say that either. Can you guys see that at all, or no? I don't know why it's not coming up is one of my tabs that I have open. What the heck? All right, so I'm not sure. Maybe I just need to. I apologize for this. Not so it usually would be. Oh, here we go. Okay, here we go. Sorry. Okay, can you guys see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay,
yes.
Cool. Okay, so as Brett said, he and I have been going back and forth a little bit, and I also want to give credit to Cole Howard, who I understand is going to be a biologist for the state of Alabama, which thrills me to no end. Cole's a fine young man, and a lot of the stuff in here is based on a bunch of work that he and Andy Greenwald did. So so what Cole did was carve up he tested the traditional Kelly banding regions against my sort of north and south conglomeration and against a bunch of longitudinal and latitudinal regions, and found out that this was the conglomeration. So your mid latitude states are from about 33 degrees latitude to about 41, and then so like the southern tip of Arkansas would be in that, but again conglomerated this into like a sort of state conglomeration, but the stuff that comes out of them is pretty close. I don't know why that is not in. Oh, there we go. Okay, so yeah, so I stole this from Cole, which is why. So here's the survival probabilities on the left, and the survival probabilities for harvest on the right. And then this is I think through 2021. I got these out of a report that we did because for some reason the annual survival probabilities did not come through. They put in natural mortality instead of annual survival, and I couldn't quite get my head around that. And the Band 2 program that I used required to re-estimate some of these banding goals required annual survival probabilities. So I took these from a former report, but they're really close to what are published in. They're really close to the equivalent. So there's these, and what I'd like to point out here is there's not as much variation as you would think as what I found in the past for many of these cohorts, like for adult males and females. There's not a ton of north to south variation. There's the normal male survival probabilities being higher than female, but then look at juvenile males on the far right. Look at the survival for the north region, the north banding region versus the south. So those juvenile males and the females to some extent, but the juvenile males, and this is really consistent with what Nathan and I found before for natural mortality. They suffer a lot of harvest, as you'll see in a second, and we found that there was a fair bit of difference in natural mortality between the northernmost male, the northern males and the southern males as we had divided it. And so you sort of see here the mid latitude states, the survivals are in the middle there. So all right, so the other thing I want you to look at here is look at the coefficients of variation, and unless I'm reading this wrong, so these are the coefficients of variation for 5-year mean survival probabilities, which corresponds to like a 15% annual CV that we're accustomed to. And look and see that the survival probabilities for all of the cohorts here are under that 7% threshold. Okay, now juvenile, so juvenile females, and well, actually no, except for juvenile females, but pretty much all of these are, except for juvenile females in the South, are below that 7% threshold. And that's how basing it on mean annual survival, that's how I have done the banding goals in the past. What's reported out in Howard et al. 2025, though, or ones that are comparable to these, and again, these are going to be off just by a little bit, but you can see here that there are substantial differences for juvenile males in terms of harvest probabilities ranging from the north through the mid-latitude states through the south, like something on the order of 8 or 9% difference in harvest probability. And then, not insignificant, like about a 4% difference for adult males and adult females, and yes, a 16% difference for juvenile females. Okay, so what I did was I converted those harvest rates that Cole calculated. I did something rude and crude, and I divided by the informative prior that he had used in his thesis work and in the paper. And then I used Jim Hines's old Band 2 software to calculate the recommended bandings for these desired CVs on the 5-year means. So you're going to see I put them as 15, like where I put 15% CV, that means that's your annual CV, and then that equates to about a 7% CV. and it's about basically your 5-year mean CVs are going to be about half of what your annual CVs are. This method incorporates both juvenile and adult survival and adult recovery probabilities. So that's why I had to change Cole's harvest probabilities back into recovery probabilities, just root and crude on average. And then so it's also different from what's reported out in Howard et al. 2025. And I'm going to point out that I'm one of the et al. On here. And I do remember commenting on this. I do think survival harvest probability can be really important in terms of trying to, like, if your management goals require a flyway wide, for example, or a range wide harvest probability, and you're lacking in southern bandings or bandings in that southern banding area, you're going to be overestimating your harvest probability. And I think Adam and some other folks have expressed concerns about maintaining, I guess, if you will, parity among different latitudes in the flyway, and does it really represent what's going on with wood ducks? Initially, although I went back and added it, we also did not incorporate an inflation factor on the total banding goals to account for historic underrepresentation of adult females in the banded sample. So this is actually what's this is I stole this from one of Cole's things, and just again revisiting here again that, so you're seeing that CVs for juvenile females and adult females are above that 7%, and I think they're below for pretty much everything else except. Yeah, and so it's just juvenile females and adult females in the South, and that's where the those sort of banding goals that you guys sort of balked at were coming from. And again, I'll point out that they're, except for juvenile females, they're within that 7% that I traditionally have used, except for juvenile females in the South. So what I did was I just went through, used the Band 2 program, and so that middle thing, that's 15%, that's basically your 7% 5-year mean. And this is just based on, this is goals for survival. You can see I'm just going to flip through these really quick because I have them summarized a little bit better here. But you can see that if you go up to a 20% CV, which I don't think is for one survival, I don't think that's completely unreasonable for adult females or for females in the South. For that southern region, because we're just simply not as concerned about them because of their somewhat higher survival rates and their much lower harvest rates. But what so I'm not sure I did this the same way as Cole did this in the those guys, Cole and Allie did this in the paper. But I went ahead and just did what Dan Collins and a bunch of folks, including Heath, did. And basically, they calculated the historic percentage of the banded total for each cohort. And then for the ones that are underrepresented, so here, I just did it for adult females and then females total. So adult females make up about 12% of the banded historic banded total. And I just did it for the most recent 5 years or so. And females overall make up about 43%. And so you're going to basically take your goals for whatever cohort it is, either females altogether or adult females, and divide by their representation factor, the percentage that they have traditionally made up. That's what I did. Whether that's completely correct, I'm not sure, but this is what I came up with. So I just, just looking at this for, so you can see my unadjusted, so my totals for the unadjusted that I got straight out of the Band 2 program based on survival probabilities instead of harvest rates. So you see about so for the South, you see a goal of about 6,400 and something or other. And then if you adjust that by the female total, then you come up with 9,600, and then which is, I think, pretty close to what you're doing. It's maybe a little bit below, but somehow the combination of using the harvest probability and possibly doing the inflation stuff a little bit differently from Howard et al., you've got about 12,000 wood ducks total for the south. That's the recommended goal. The ones for, even the ones for the mid latitude regions, me even adjusting those by adult females, the adult female representation for those, that actually comes out of what Cole's goals were, what we reported out, and yeah, it's not much different from what you guys. I think it's less than what you guys are actually doing now. And then I can't see that bottom part there, but you can sort of see how that there's a, yeah, we're kind of not that far off. And really, there's not really an issue in the central and north, even if you go by harvest probabilities. In going by harvest probabilities and then inflating it because of historic representation, that's where you get that big huge gap for those southern birds. I think, okay, so when you're calculating banding goals, so higher survival helps, because especially if you're getting if you're graduating a fair number of females into as to adults, even if their juvenile survival probabilities are below 50%, that's still quite a few birds that you've got in your banded sample that you get credit for, and that that you can make up for lack of adult female bandings that way to some extent. And I'm not sure that the methods that we reported out, just looking at harvest rate alone, take that into account. I don't know if you get credit for those graduating birds. And then the other issue is that, so we know number of bandings definitely helps increase your number of bandings increases or improves your the precision on your estimates, but the number of recoveries also improve the precision on your estimates. So in areas where you have lower harvest but basically lower recovery probabilities, what you end up with is a situation where you're not harvesting as many, but like you're saying, well, what we want a bigger banded sample, we want a bigger a certain precision, and so we need to have a bigger banded sample, even if we're like, well, like the harvest probabilities of these are like 8% less than like the ones in the furthest north, and we're really not that concerned about them. I think that therefore, I'm not saying not concerned, but the cohorts that I worry about from a stewardship perspective, and I think some of the folks in the northern states feel the same way, are the the northern adult females. So I think that's where we have the biggest concerns. And so right at this point, I'll let Brett maybe fill in anything I've forgotten to mention here, and then ask you all if you have any questions. Does this seem like I'm not saying to ignore us completely, but ignore our paper completely, but I'm just saying there's a maybe it was a little conservative, particularly for the southern region.
Yeah, really the only other thing that I would add, just looking at like how many birds each of those regions have been banding. In the north, it's been about just over 11,000. The central has been about 11,500, and the south is right around 5,500. So you can kind of see how that compares to how that might compare with like the adjusted by adult female and just female, and with those associated CVs. But yeah, really just wanted to open it up to you all to kind of get your feedback, and then at the February meeting we could come back with like what those state goals might actually look like.
Hey, Brett.
So yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Has there been any discussion with the Atlantic flyway? Because this crosses flyway boundaries, right? Like these banding goals, right? It covers portions of the Atlantic flyway as well. So have you had any discussions about changing their banding goals in the Atlantic as well?
So it's been a little bit since we had talked with them. Last I heard that they wanted it where it's going to end up going like pertaining to their multi-stock model that they've got. But yeah, I really wanted to see like what you guys thought would be doable, and then between now and the February meeting, touch base with them again. So that way we could move forward. And Pam, you might be able to speak to it a little bit more based on the last
Right. So
meeting they
my
had.
thoughts from what I know of the, the multi-stock decision frame decision matrix, that I think that from a perspective of stewardship, they have repeatedly expressed concern about those northern birds. That's why we don't have an official harvest. We sort of kick the can down the road and don't have an official harvest strategy because many of their, the Atlantic flyway weren't satisfied with going with just a range wide estimate for harvest rates before they had multi-stock, right? Because of their concerns about their northern birds. So I would advise them to pick a level of that makes them feel comfortable about monitoring survival probabilities for stewardship purposes for those northern birds, and then for the purposes of not wanting to have a biased a flyway wide harvest probability for wood ducks that is biased too high. You'd want to make sure that you have enough southern bandings to even it out. And I think in the Howard 2025, I think this was Heath's idea, like, possibly, maybe, I don't know if you're like end up doing some sort of weighted kind of thing, but like you'd want to avoid giving the impression, because of a lack of parity in banding between regions, that you are over harvesting your wood ducks when you might not be. For that's the advice I would give to them. I'm not sure that affects you guys at all. Is there anything in particular that you'd like to see, besides putting this into a little bit more of a coherent kind of report that would help you sort of figure out how to move forward with this, or not move forward with it, or just what would you find helpful in terms of giving guidance on banding goals at this point?
I think I just need a goal, a justified goal for us to try to achieve. I mean, my agency is going to look at that goal, set it as the absolute minimum or maximum, and either we'll get it or we won't, but we'll rarely go over. But I do need, in order to get field staff buy-in and administrative support, a goal, period. So I've got a lot of questions from administrative staff over the last couple of years about what is this goal. You've said it's going to be changing. What do we need to do? How do we need to think about this in the future? So I would really like us to make some progress in getting something that we can all agree on as a Southern goal, a state-specific Southern goal.
I guess to Jason's point, there are no ramifications for not meeting it from a state agency's perspective, right? And so what is the onus to meet those goals? Like, if we don't, we don't. I think that's the lack of having the wood duck harvest strategy with that, is that you're like, well, it's nice to have those goals. There's nothing holding our feet to the fire.
It's a really interesting question because since the Atlantic Flyway is very committed to multi-stock, like at this point, you guys may have some different objectives and fewer objections to just treating, like, going for some sort of flyway wide harvest strategy. I'm probably not really qualified to even say this, but we kind of didn't move, we kind of moved forward with like a 3-bird bag because of the lack of agreement on which cohort to monitor, but I don't know, maybe I don't know what the Dave's not here. He's not on the call, is he? I don't know what the what the ramifications would be, but yeah, if you think it'd be helpful to have some, like, I don't know, penalties for not meeting them, I don't know. Yeah. I think one of the so there's no doubt that we're banning fewer wood ducks than there have been banded in in the past, at some points in the past. However, one thing that has rescued that is just the increases in band reporting probability. So I mentioned that your estimates of precision shrink when when they get more precise, when you have more band recoveries. Well, those band recoveries can come from true harvest, or it can come from increased reporting probability. And for like the calculations on this, it doesn't really matter. And I would say that when Jim Kelly wrote the 1997 report, you had 30-day seasons, and you had a 2-bird bag, and you had crappy reporting rates. And so yeah, he was looking at like recovery probabilities of like 1% and 2%, whereas yours are always going to be for all the cohorts, they're not below 4 or 5% because of the increased reporting and to some extent increased harvest. So that has kind of rescued a lot. That has sort of rescued the degree to which this data stream continues to be informative and possibly quite adequate. Now, if you went to 0, no. If everybody stopped banning wood ducks, so maybe there's a lot of psychology involved there. The other thing I would ask you to consider about with the banding goals is, I tried to make a move away from doing it just based on an even split. I looked at total state area. We looked at total area of forested and scrub wetlands in a state, and then allocated based on that percentage. I know North Carolina balked at that pretty hard. But yeah, West Virginia was thrilled because they're like, oh, we could actually ban 100 birds and be sort of doing more than our fair share. So does it make sense to like divide it up so that Rhode Island has the same number as? But I think that's how it was basically in the in the 1997 report, and that doesn't make any sense to me. But maybe somebody has a better idea. So, I mean, lacking any other ideas, I'm probably going to continue to do what we did for for the report, and in terms of just allocating based on probable useful wood duck habitat, knowing that maybe you have to go back and negotiate like some adjustments if you really are going to come up with some sort of plan. You want me to be Jim Kelly and just tell you what to do, right? Yeah. Anyway, thanks for listening. Brett, do you have anything else?
I guess the only other thing that I would like a little bit of feedback about, like within that southern region, like would people be comfortable with a CV with like 20%, or if they had any thoughts on if they had a preference of, or if they had like any objections to if you're just adjusting it by adult female or just females in general.
Brett, ask that question. Ask that question again, Brett.
All right, yeah, I'll just start with the first one. So like within the southern banding region, I mean, would people be comfortable with the 20% CV versus like trying to get like a 15%, just given that they've got the higher survival and lower harvest rates?
That's basically where we're at now, right? I mean,
You're
based on
kind
our,
of in
what
between. Well, so actually, yeah, I would say I'd say you're like just not quite meeting the 15% for based on juvenile females, but so yeah, I'd say for females in the South, yeah, you're somewhere between 15 and 20% CV on survival probabilities annually. That is.
we've been comfortable with that for a while, so I'd say
Alright.
you got your answer there, probably.
And then I guess as far as when we're adjusting those goals, I mean, would people prefer to see it adjusted by like just the number of adult females or just by like females in general? Or like, I guess would there be any objection to breaking it down either way?
Hey, Brett, maybe I'm off base here, but these seem like some pretty lofty questions that I don't know that I'm really prepared at this moment to kind of answer without reading and analyzing, thinking a little bit. I think that, I mean, Pam's given us some nice stuff to start, but I don't know. I guess maybe I'm the only one who's just not prepared enough to know, but I'm just not comfortable with answering some of these questions at this moment.
I apologize for that. You know, I certainly I think it sounds like it'll be helpful for me to put this into Brett and I to put this into a report and make some proposed options and lay out the pros and cons of those prior to the flyway meeting. Because I've been thinking about this stuff for a while. Like a lot of stuff has been bouncing around in my head for a while, and so I think it's a little unfair for me to. We're proposing the questions, and if you say you need more information, I think that's an answer. And I also hear Jason saying that, hey, their agency will view these as maximum. We said maximum goals, right? Yeah, they wouldn't be like. So to me, that argues for some sort of inflation factor, but maybe something that's commensurate with the realistic biology of these birds and the realistic harvest pressure that they're under, or lack of it. So I'll work on getting this stuff into some sort of something with an introduction and methods and a discussion section and results too, and then get that to you guys sooner than later.
Sorry, Pam, but
Sound like a plan?
that would help me
Yeah,
immensely kind of as I think about it.
Absolutely. I just didn't want to jump into something that deep, like, and you guys say, no, we don't. If this seems like a realistic approach and taking, if you're okay with possibly taking, being comfortable with taking more risk with the southern birds, some of the cohorts in the southern banding region, then I think I can proceed forward and give you more and better and more formal information that you can sit down and digest. Because I know I probably wouldn't be like prepared to give hard and fast answers on this either.
Jason.
Hey, go ahead, Jason.
I think probably it would be worthwhile getting feedback from states on what is achievable at this point now anyways, so that we can assess whether we're trying to improve, whether it's worthwhile and possible to improve precision on these estimates anyway. I mean, you look at what we've been operating with as a goal for years in my state, we can pretty much get there most of the time. If we had to increase it by 10, 20%, we could probably do that. But to double, probably not.
It would help me to know, I guess, taking a look at what the current bandings by state are, that would help me actually a little bit too. I can't tell you like most states' numbers off the top of my head. So, yeah.
Yeah, we're basically double our goal right now in Alabama, but I don't know that we have much more capacity than that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Very
all
well.
right, let's ask Brett and Pam to kind of put this together for us and get a little bit more information and be ready for a big discussion and potentially, I think Brett, you had told me potentially a recommendation on this for along these lines for February.
Yeah, if we can get there, I think that would be great. Just, I know we've been talking about banding goals for quite a while now. Yeah, we'll see what we can get done.
Sounds good. Any other questions for Brett and Pam? All right.
Well, thanks very much, y'all. Good to see you.
Thank you, Pam. Good to see you too. I just want one last thing I had on the agenda. I'll not mention corn today. I see Houston sitting in front of a picture. Well, it might be rice, might not be flooded corn there in Mississippi. We'll see though. But anyway, the last thing to do is just kind of talk about our meeting coming up. If Jamie, I don't know, did my thing share the agenda? It did. Okay. So Jamie, first start with you. I think David sent out an email to everybody in the last couple of days. I know Doug did, maybe also lots and lots and lots of people not registered. Our deadline for the hotel is when, Jamie? Early February, right?
Yeah. Somebody say something while I look it up because I don't know off the top of my head.
Oh.
I wanted to say it was January 30th, but that's probably not right.
In any case, it's very soon. So if you haven't made hotel reservations, please consider doing those sooner rather than later. If you hockey, if we pass the deadline to get you buy hockey tickets, those folks that wanted hockey tickets there were very few. I missed. I guess I'll claim. I paid my registration, or maybe more likely Kylie did it for me, and I missed the fact that there was a separate link to pay for the hockey tickets, so I had to go back and do that. So for anybody who wants to go to the hockey game, please make sure you pay for those tickets. Yep. There weren't many people the last time I looked on that list.
Right. Room reservation deadline is February 6th.
Okay.
As far as the hockey game goes, like the initial poll that I got from both game and non-game folks was about 30 people. So that's what I told my contact at the Nashville Predators was we were looking to get about 30 tickets or so. That can go up and that can go down a little bit. He's got room to move. So I would just say if you're interested in going to the game, go in, click the link, and dump your money in there. That's what I'm shooting for, getting probably about 30 tickets, and then I'm going to base it. I think I've got to buy the rest of the tickets that same week, that first week of February. I have to talk with him and purchase them. So, All
so if you want to go to the game,
if you're interested in going to the hockey game, please go and dump your money in the bucket.
18 people have paid for a hockey ticket so far.
Okay. All right. And I know David sent, I think I sent you guys a reminder last week about it, and David sent one to non-game. So hopefully folks will, we get what we get, and,
all right.
It'll be funny. It'll be funny. It'll be funny either way.
I guess David's including me in all the non-game emails now. So things all kind of run together for me. So our agenda is pretty busy. And Monday's our travel day. We're going to have a kind of shortened joint session with non-game, which will basically include updates from Dave and Frank. And then Jamie is going to introduce us to our new accountants. and give us a little update on their process. And then we will have first session, kind of two big presentations, one from Scott Boomer. The details on that are not completely set at this point, but then we'll also have a presentation from Craig Lashak from Ducks Unlimited, talking about some of the challenges we faced with NALCA and funding going out of the country. And I don't know if Mike's still here, but Mike was instrumental in making that happen. So definitely thanks to him for that. And then on Thursday, general session, Brad Cohen's going to give us a presentation on some of the things that they've been doing. Jamie's got some folks from TWRA that are going to give a presentation on some of the habitat work that they're doing. Jennifer Malpass, if y'all remember, used to be with the Bird Banding Lab, is now with USGS with the what is it, Northern Prairie Research, or anyway, she's she'll give a presentation on some of the duck work they're doing. Casey Messerly is going to update us on the project Explore Biases in HIP. Howie's going to do a Ducks Unlimited Canada update. And then Taylor's going to end it with a few of the awards that we're behind on. So are there any things there that you'll see that I've left out? I guess we'll deal with new business and things like that, but anything that y'all can think of that, as you see here, that I've left out, give me a yell. I'm trying to think. And then the one thing also I left off mentioning is that Tuesday night we will have our Lukanen Award presentation. Dr. Lohman is going to talk about sex-specific survival in mallards. Should be really good. I think Jamie has worked it out to have us pizzas that night for Tuesday night. So we have pretty much hang on for dear life. We have the research, we have wiffle ball, and we have hockey. And I don't know if anybody noticed I was playing with AI and had a little bit of was playing with logos there. It was kind of fun. And I also thought about, well, let's see, that's not it. Anyway, also Jamie has potentially some little presents for folks associated with this, for a meeting sticker. So I'm going to send everybody out a copy of this agenda, something probably tomorrow, but this is the latest agenda with memberships, what I believe is the most up-to-date membership for all the different committees. If you see anything that doesn't jive, I know there are a couple of folks that are semi-new that have sent me recent things asking to be included on committees. I could not have put you in there on some of this. So if I've left it out, yell at me and we'll get it all right. Oren sent me this recently. It was kind of the last one that he had. So with that, I've also contacted the different committee chairs, and this is kind of a beginning list of potential recommendations that we have coming. If I left off something that you sent me, let me know about that. And I want to ask you guys, I'm not nearly as organized as Oren was, so I'm going to need your help as committee chairs to keep me updated on what you've got as far as recommendations coming, and keep me kind of in the loop. And so we have that, we're kind of ready to go when it comes time to get to the meeting. And I know things will come up this week. I guess last week, the Duck Symposium asked for money. So that's something that kind of popped up out of the blue. And surely there'll be a thing or two that pops up out of the blue between now and February. But just yell at me if there's things that I have not included or I've done wrong here. Jason had Hudson Bay Project funding and Arctic Goose, but feels more like a Canada Goose Committee thing, but I guess maybe it is Arctic Goose now, Jason?
Yeah, that's Arctic Goose.
Okay. So these are the things that I, again, gleaned from what y'all told me. I could have easily left something out. So as you get a chance, again, I'll email this to everybody and just look at it and say, hey, you left off this or that. So again, I apologize ahead. It's gonna be rough going from Oren's organized perfection to my chaos, but we'll do our best. And thanks to Jamie and Dave for all the work that they've done to get this meeting up and running. And so, any questions? Oren has his hand up.
Hey, JB, just wanted to throw on the list there. In the winter meeting is when we approve that annual travel funding for all the groups. So that should be pretty straightforward, maybe just a couple tweaks, but easy to overlook that too.
Does that come from exec?
JB, I'll marshal that one, and we usually do that during like general session, new business or old business or something like that. So I'll get that one cleaned up and ready to go.
Thank you, Oren and Jamie.
And I just like to note for the meeting, if you did not see it, I think on the last meeting announcement we sent out, we have arranged for free parking in a state lot. So just be aware, it's not a secure lot. So it's about 5 blocks away from the hotel. It's a state lot. Yeah. So, and it's free. So I know that was the parking was good. I got a couple of emails of sticker shock value on that one, $45 a night, and it's valet. So, but we've arranged it. I will. I think maybe 10 days or so before the meeting, I'll send out the parking passes so that you guys can print them off and have them ready to go. I was thinking about putting them in your welcome packet, but that might be a little bit too late. Like, you're gonna get your welcome packet after you've parked your vehicle, so didn't make sense at that point. So we'll send them out.
Sounds great, Jamie. Thank you for hosting these meetings. It isn't much fun. There's a lot of work that goes into prep, and Jamie and David Haney have done a really great job of making this thing all come together. So I believe I sent all the chairs of the different committees an email, and I got a response. So I believe we've got everybody's okay with times and all that kind of stuff. Note that we did slightly shift the banding human dimensions on Thursday around joint regs. Well, the banding human dimensions around because non-game wanted to come to banding. So I made it first so that they could do. Sorry, Reed, I made you earlier in the morning. But any other details that I have not covered as far as the meeting goes? I have a couple of very, very pretty decoys from Chris Nicolai sitting here in a box behind my desk for a couple of our award winners, and have some plaques for folks. So I'm excited about that. And I guess with that, it is 3:59. We have used every single solitary second of our time. And so with that, I have a motion to adjourn.
Tennessee.
And a second?
Alabama.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it very much. As of right now, next month's meeting is on. I know it's the week before the meeting. We're going to leave it in place. If we don't need it, we'll cancel it. But for now, we're just going to leave it in place. Thank you all. We will see you next month.
Thanks, JB.
See you.
Thanks, JB.
Thanks.